Hello, my name is Vic Wheeler, and welcome to Flutarians Improv 101. My intention for our time together today is for you to leave with 3 secrets that have enabled me to have confidence when I improvise, as well as at least 5 resources that you can take and start improvising, improving your improvising with today. So, here is a comic strip that is a collaborative effort between me and Canva's AI. We'll be seeing some Canva art today, and if you have ever felt like I'm going to die, like the first panel here when someone asks you to improvise, I want you to know you are not alone. Back from my days as a personal trainer, we might have said that in stage 1 here, you're in not even in pre-contemplation phase yet. You don't know that you can be an improviser. But wait, I have an idea. The next column, you have received a moment of inspiration that maybe you can take action and improvise on your own. And so then you might move into this next moment of, what the heck is this? I think a lot of us experience that feeling of mental overwhelm, like we're going into the red zone and this computer of a brain is about to freeze up like an old computer or phone that has too many apps running on it. What's going on here? But then, with hopefully some guidance from maybe someone like me, you start to realize, I can practice this. And then before you know it, you'll be getting off the page. You won't be stuck to the sheet music. And hopefully not long before that, you'll be feeling like, this is cool. Improv is cool. I'm cool. I'm playing cool music. So, I wanted to find some examples of visual artists and their artistic journeys so that we can see a little bit of what this improv journey might look like for you. Sometimes with artists, we only see and witness their most beautiful work, but the truth is that we all make mistakes, so give yourself some grace. And check out this guy's journey.
Anniversary or anything like that. About a year ago, I decided that I wanted to get better at drawing faces, and so I just started drawing. And at first, I didn't know anything. I kept it really simple with like stick figure stuff, adding a little bit more detail. But then I started learning some things from the internet, things like the Riley method, things like drawing from reference and shading, and I just kept adding more and more stuff to what I was doing. Eventually, I just got better and better and better, and the whole time I was going through divorce and struggling with addiction and depression and making a career change, and looking back at these sketches and my progression here, I'm just so proud of how far I've come in the year that I've been working on this. And I just want to make this video to share my journey with you guys and show you that even if you think you'll never be good at something or it's out of your reach, it's not. You just need to put in the practice.
So I hope that video is poignant to you. And I wanted to pause it here in this moment of the broken egg cup. So mistakes can be fun, and even funny, and even artistic. So remember, we didn't learn to walk and run without stumbling and falling and crawling first, right? So I invite you to consider yourself as a baby, an infant, or a toddler at improvisation, and you will grow over the next year at practicing this from a baby to an artist, just like this guy. You may have noticed that the first sketches that he had were like, children, like a little baby. But before long, he was also doing some technical exercises to help learn specific skills that could allow him to express his artistry in a more artistic way, in a more mature and expressive way. One of the things that I have discovered about skill and improvisation is that anyone can improvise, but the more skill you have, the more range of expression that's available to you. So, I have wanted to be a juggler since I was a little kid. And I had it in my mind that you have to be able to juggle 3 balls to be a juggler. Anybody can juggle 2 balls. That's baby stuff. If you can juggle 2 balls, you're not a real juggler. And then I was visiting an open gym at Lachey Movement Company close to my home here in Austin, and I was, well, I guess juggling a staff. I just had one staff, like a bow staff, you might call it, that I use sometimes for exercising my shoulders, mobility, and this juggler at the open gym said, "Oh, you're a juggler too." And I said, "Oh, no, not really." He said, "Well, sure you are. You're doing it now. That's juggling, right?" And I didn't know the guy's name. I may never see him again. The interaction was probably no more than 2 or 3 minutes long, maybe even 1 minute. But his perspective stuck with me. And now I consider myself a juggler. Even though I can't juggle 3 balls yet. I've recently gotten some new juggling ball toys that are really fun for me to use. I discovered it was important for me to have tools that were fun for me. It's important in our music world too. And I think the moral of the story here is that sometimes it just takes one person to ignite the flame of improvisation in you, or to ignite a dream in you, to ignite the belief that you can do it. I know that you're already improvising in other areas of your life, right? So, will you say it with me? I improvise. Say it. I am an improviser. If you really want to be an improviser, make this your mantra. Write it on your mirror. Put it on a sticky note. Put it in your car. So, I'll sing a little improvised, somewhat improvised tune for y'all in this theme. A word of warning. Don't stop and start the Zoom recording. If you want to make a replay. Okay, so I did do a live class of this last night, but unfortunately the recording did not get captured properly. But I want to send a shout out to Mira for being the first person to ask me about a replay. So I went ahead and am making this recording for you and those replayers who may not be able to attend my live classes but can tune into the replays. So what I do normally, what I am doing is I do live Zoom workshops like this one, Improv 101 and Classic Rock Standards. And every Monday I'm doing group improv games on Zoom. These have been really fun and educational so far. I also run the Flutarians online forum, and I'm building out the Flutarians community on my site where you can play games and courses, and also that'll host the library of my special guest interviews and past workshops. And I do have some plans for an upcoming Flutarian retreat, so if that piques your interest, please do not forget to message me about it. So the advantage now of doing this session, just you and me, the camera, and us replayers who are tuning in at our own time, is that I won't be distracted by the entering and exiting of attendees, and I'll have, without all of that and without attendees playing their own improvisations, I'll have more time to share more information with you. But one of the disadvantages is that you don't get to see the live reactions of other flutarians going through these same emotional processes and questioning and discovery, self-discovery processes that you will be going through too. So my goal in all of my live classes, especially the group improv games, is for all of the students to be taking, all of the attendees to be taking action, not just to be sitting and absorbing. But in the group improv games, my goal is for everyone to play at least a third of the time and to be actively listening the rest of the time, so that you have to take action and you don't just get stuck in this situation that I've personally been in with online courses sometimes, where we watch the material but we don't really make as much progress as we want to because there's no one there encouraging us and applauding us and being accountable to us for taking action. So one of my Zoom room rules when you do come to the group improv games sessions is you never have to apologize for doing things differently than my guidelines or instructions suggest. So unlike a band or orchestra class where you're trying to do things as precisely and exactly as the instructor requests of you, here in improv class, the ideas that the directions that I give are just to demonstrate ideas that I hope you can use in the future in your real life improvisations. So I break them down into little games and chunks that we can practice separately. But I ask that anytime you feel like, oh, I didn't do it right, don't apologize. Never apologize. Only notice. Notice what happened and see. Can you articulate what just happened? So, why, just briefly, am I here doing this? Personally, I was on the track to become an orchestral flutist, which, well, I could talk about that all day. Some other time we'll talk more about campfire talks, but long story short, I got so burnt out on the competition when my dad got sick and died of cancer while I was going to music college. And I just didn't have it in me to compete anymore. And I mostly quit playing flute. It was a very depressing, burnt out time for me. But when my dad's favorite songs would come on the radio, I would want to play along with them. So I would get out my flute and I would start improvising. And that was so cathartic for me. It really helped me move through the grief and other sometimes difficult emotions related to my dad's death at that time. So then, as a result of improvising and returning to flute through improvisation, I started making friends. Here in Austin, where I live now, oh, how do I tell the short version of the story? Long story short, it wasn't long after a few people found out that I do play flute, that I do have a degree in music, that I was recording on Haley Harkin's first album and joining the Cosmic Butterflies band and playing in several kirtan groups around town. And people started asking me, where do I teach? And after I told enough people, no, I'm not teaching, I realized something needed to change. So, here I am. That's why I created the Flutarians group, is because I want you to have access to those same spiritual, moving, healing, connecting experiences through improvisation that I've had, because, well, I know it can be healing. So why are you doing this? What brings you to improvisation? If you haven't already told me, please drop it in the comments or send me a direct message, voice message. it's fascinating to me how we're all led through different paths to the power of improvised music. I know for a fact, from my own personal experience, that improvising brings us together. It connects us. And I know that improvising allows me to express authentically some maybe emotions, thoughts, and feelings that somehow don't fit into words. And when I do that, I experience a sense of flow. That sense of flow is a peaceful place. And I think that feeling of flow is what a lot of people are seeking when they are looking for improving their improvising. Is that true for you? I honestly hope and pray that through my work in music and through your participation in music and through our participation in our communities that we can foster peace around the world. So, thank you very much for joining me now. I know that there's a million other things you could be doing, so I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me and learn a little bit about my perspective on improvisation. So if you stay all the way through this, I'll give you 5 resources that you can start using today to improve your improvising. And I'll let you in on 3 secrets that have made it possible for me to have confidence when I improvise. I will warn you, though, just watching the replay is no substitute for actually practicing and for actually improvising. So I invite you to remove distractions, get out something to take notes with, take some notes, and get your flute and play along. Take action. It's tons of baby steps that help us get to a vantage point on a mountain of mastery, right? And while I have mastered some aspects of improvisation, I count myself still among those who are improving their improvising. So who are Flutarians? We are flutists who are improving our improvising, who live and breathe flute so that we can bring more peace to the world through music. So here's a question to think about. What's the difference between free improv and jazz improv or folk improv? What do you think? Could it be that jazz has more structure, more chords? Could it be that free improv doesn't have a chord structure or tonal home at all? What even is improvisation? How would you define it? I would say that improvisation is anything that wouldn't be written down on the sheet music if there were sheet music, or if there is sheet music. And I would say that jazz or folk styles of improv are like a language, like an idiomatic expression, an idiomatic improvisation that has a set of expectations, like an accent in a language. And that free improv is simply free from any of those conventions. So let's take a moment actually to make a little free improv. I think a lot of times chaos is the word associated with free improv, or even cacophony, which means lots of perhaps dissonant sounds. I'll play one now. Will you play one with me? There's one breath cacophonous improv. So here's another question. What counts as a wrong note? Can you define it? Does it have a definition? Is it an external definition or an internal definition? And who cares, really? This is the photograph that came up when I searched Canva for who cares, and look at their expressions. Take a moment to jot it down. Who do you think cares if you play a wrong note when you improvise? Who practically cares? Who realistically cares? I think it's fair to say that if you have a professional position in an orchestra and you play too many wrong notes, you could lose your job. So your boss cares in those scenarios. But that's not improv. And I would venture to say that if you have a kind and caring teacher and your teacher is listening to you improvise, then they don't care, or they won't be offended or hurt. Actually, that's an important point here on the subject of being hurt. Can music really hurt anyone? So, if we're not in a public place where we're performing and other people can listen to us, and if we're at home alone in our practice room, then who is it really who cares if we play a wrong note? It's us, right? Have you seen that movie Inside Out? It's an animated movie where the main characters' emotions are depicted as each of their own colored characters. Like red is this short little red, anger is the short little red guy, and envy is green, and joy is she yellow? And I like to think that there's these different characters in my own internal world of, for example, the critic or the bully and the cheerleader. There's lots of us in here, I guess, but those are the two that I think are most important to this conversation of improvising. And who cares? Who really cares? Is it your internal critic? Is it maybe the voice of your parents or a past music teacher? Someone who's mean to you or hypercritical and didn't ever congratulate you? I threw in this screenshot of a conversation, well, not a conversation, a comment yesterday that happened from one of the Flutarians after we were talking about improvisation. Go check out, by the way, Christine Nichols' album, Euterpe Pirate in Paradise, that features lots of improvised flute. She says, if someone had told me, undergraduate baby me, that in 10 years improvisation would be her go-to, she would have laughed, laughing to hide the fear. So, if you're feeling afraid of being judged either by external sources like the flute gods or by internal sources like your own inner critic, then know you're not alone. So I asked her, if you could ask, if she from then 10 years ago asked you now, what's the worst that could happen, what would you say? And she said, you play an off note and no one notices. Or if they do, you shift it to a discussion about allowing mistakes, because I'm a therapist and often work with people who won't take risks for fear of making mistakes. I always tell interns, if you play a note that sounds wrong, just play it 10 more times until it sounds like it belongs. So, I invite you to give your internal cheerleader, yeah, here we go, to give your internal cheerleader the bigger voice, the louder voice than the internal critic. And here's a challenge. Take out your flute, and can you play the most beautiful flute note you've played or heard all day? remember that if you can play even one flute note, chances are that you're the best flute player in the room. So, we've been talking a little bit about what is a wrong note. Well, in music like folk music and rock and roll and jazz, I would say that really what we mean when we say a wrong note, usually in a practical sense, is that it sounds dissonant. And that the notes that sound most right are the ones that sound most consonant, cozy, warm, close to home. Right? Is that how you would define it? So, my grandma taught me this, and a few other mentors in my life, this statement or phrase: if you have two ears and one mouth for a reason, listen twice and speak once. Or you could say listen twice and play once. I think that listening is the most important part of improvising. And I like to think of listening with two ears. One ear is the biggest fan, like my grandma was one of my biggest fans. And she wouldn't hear any mistakes. If she heard any mistakes, whoosh, didn't think about it. She was just so happy to hear my music and to experience and congratulate me. All those sorts of things that a biggest fan does. And in my other ear, I like to listen with the ears of my best flute teacher. Now, I've had some great flute teachers along the way, and I like to combine all of their best attributes into that ear. And good music teachers are able to give specific criticism and to couch it within those positive statements that you might hear from the biggest fan, right? And so along the way of this journey of you improving your improvising, I encourage you to start thinking of yourself as your own best teacher. Listen to your recordings. Write down what you think about it. Write down the things that you love. Do those things more. And write down the things that could be better and practice those. So, with the Flutarians group, you get access to my favorite drone track as well as more than 300 backing tracks. So if you click on the single chord backing tracks, so if we're in the backing tracks folder, the general one, like this, you'll see that there is a folder for single chords and drones. And that's where you'll find this tempura track. Now this is just a drone on the key of and the notes of C. C and G. So, have you ever played that game with a friend or family member where you hide an object and they're looking for it, and when they get closer to it, you say, oh, you're getting hot, you're getting warm, you're on fire. And if they're getting further away from it, you say, oh, you're getting cold, you're getting cooler, you're freezing. So I think that the notes that are most consonant are the first note of the chord, the fifth note of the scale. I meant to say the first note of the scale and the fifth note of the scale and the third note of the scale. Here, I'll sing kind of how I hear them. Do, C, 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 warm, hot, like the hottest coals of a fire. G, 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 G. Fifth, the fifth has an orange feeling, still so close to the one it feels like it's on fire. And E. The third sounds yellow, like a field of sunflowers, nice and warm and cozy. And then the F, the fourth, sounds Like a green field of clover still sounds nice, but not as blue as maybe the A. Okay, have you heard that phrase, a blue note? Or feeling kind of blue? A blue note is sometimes a phrase used in jazz to describe a note that has a kind of melancholy feeling. And the second to me, has a slightly warmer feeling than the sixth, but still feels like it really wants to go up or down. And the B, oh, this feels really dissonant. Up at the top of that cool spectrum really wants to go up. Okay. Do you experience the intervals with their consonants and dissonance in the same way? So, one of my favorite ways to warm up is to play this anyway up or anyway down the scale game. This is like when I was a kid playing with my cousins on the stairs in the house I grew up in. So we would jump up 2 stairs and then crawl down 3, and then see if we could jump up 5 and then crawl down 4. We did must have 1,000 different variations of ways that we could go up and down these plain old first, second story stairs in a plain old regular house. And so most of us spend our flute education playing scales the same way. Do your scales sound kind of like this? That can get boring, can't it? So, if I'm playing along with a band and they're playing in a key that I may be less familiar with than C major, maybe they're playing in B major and I want to remind myself, oh, what are the 5 sharps in this key? Then I might do an anyway up. So the only guideline for anyway up here is that you try and touch all of the notes in the scale at least once on your way up and see, can you do it in one breath? Here, I'll do an example, and how about you follow with an example? You take one, anyway up, C major. So, when we're playing our flutes and there's somebody listening, especially, we want to sound professional, right? We don't want to sound like we're just a student playing our scales. So, when you play this next anyway down the scale, C major, make sure to include some nice tone, some nice vibrato. Maybe something that gives the musical statement an arc, a story arc, like a musical sentence or story. Here, I'll take one anyway down in C major, and then you can go next. Record yourself doing it if you can. Why don't you take one? Do you feel more like you're getting lost in the flow or lost in your critical thoughts? So, this is a game that I play sometimes in the group improv games where we try and decide, are we hearing Happy Mary Had a Little Lamb with the major third? Or if we change to playing in the minor key, is it like a Sad Mary? I frequently use tunes that I know that I have stored in my own mental library, like Mary Had a Little Lamb, to seed the thoughts of my next improvisation. So I might take the intervals or the rhythm from Mary Had a Little Lamb. Let's do a little improv on sad Mary Had a Little Lamb. So if we were going to play in C minor instead of C major, what flat would this have? C minor is relative to E flat major, so it's got the E flat, the B flat, and the A flat. But for Mary Had a Little Lamb, we just need the E flat. Here, I'll take one. How would you describe that? What adjectives would you use to describe its characteristic? Can you make one that sounds kind of like that? Here, I'll give you a minute to do a improvisation on Mary Had a Little Lamb in C minor. Isn't it incredible how much just changing that one note can change the feeling of this tune? That's a fun thing to do in improvisation, is to take a tune that's in a major key and turn it minor, and take a tune that's in a minor key and turn it major. So you can use this backing track in any key to practice all of your scales, and any way up and any way down the scale in any key. Here's the tools that I recommend for this sort of thing. So you can download the backing track from the Flutarians backing tracks folder, and then open up the music speed changer, and either use it on the web app like here, or you can download it on your phone. It works great there too. Just trying to find where I thought I had it opened up a little bit earlier. Let me grab it. Here it is. So check out Let It Be. And then we can change the tempo up here, or the pitch. Hear how it changed the pitch? So, pretty cool. The other cool tool that you can use to do this is called the transpose extension. I use this in Google Chrome, but it works in pretty much any browser on your computer. And so once you've installed it here, then you can go to a tune like Achy Breaky Heart we've been listening to. It's in the key of B, and we can change it up to the key of C. Right? Okay. So that's how that tool works. Super, super useful when you're doing things like improving your improvising in all key signatures. So I would recommend, if you're a beginner, to just stick to C major at first, no sharps, no flats, and it's relative minor, A minor. But if you're an intermediate or advanced player, you can go ahead and start practicing these principles in all keys, and I highly recommend that you do. So, as far as musical roles, what role does the flute usually play? Is it usually the rhythm section or maybe the melody? I think the flute usually plays the melody. Here's a drawing from one of my group improv classes where we were drawing a musical sandwich. So down at the bottom, we've got the triangle, the holy trinity, I think, of music in general, not just improvised music, but most music has these three elements: the rhythm, the tonal center, and the melody. And then maybe also harmony. And any two of those three sound good together. Kind of like, let's see, if we had a burger and we had the rhythm is the bun and the tonal center or the chords are the patty, those go good together. Maybe the melody is a cheese on top. It's a cheeseburger. And cheese in a bun, that's pretty good. That's like a grilled cheese, right? And cheese in a patty, that's not so bad either. But when you put all three of them together, we've got a pretty good sandwich here, right? But you can see in green also I've got written down harmony. That's like the pickles on top over here. That's like the garnish. What would you garnish your musical burger with? What do you like on your cheeseburger? Or your tacos? And a taco, it would be like the shell is the rhythm, or a pizza, it would be like the crust is the rhythmic backbone. So, as flute players, we spend historically most of our time in the melody, but also sometimes in the harmony. So, here's a secret that works out with the math of the piano. You're never further than 2 notes away from a chord tone. And if you want to play the most consonant notes, play the chord tones. Play the notes that the piano and guitar or chordal instruments are playing. As flute players, we can only play 1 note at a time, but we can play the same notes that are in the chord. So I would describe the notes in the scale as being in one of these 3 categories. They're either chord tones, or they're other tones in the key signature, or they're tones that are outside the key signature. I'll show you what that looks like on the Chrome Shared Piano. Now, this tool is super fun because you can play a keyboard on your computer with your keyboard like this, or on your tablet or on your phone with your finger. So one of the cool things about piano is that we can see a visual graph of how all the notes are related to each other, and each of the notes are the same distance apart. We call it a half step, which is sometimes a little bit confusing because you got a half step like here to here, and a whole step is 2 half steps. So that's a whole step there. So just trying to remember, where exactly I wanted to show you, what exactly I wanted to show you. And that is that, okay, so if I were going to play the chord band parts in my left hand and the flute parts in my right hand, we can put the chords in the left and the flute part 1 note at a time in the right. We can play an arpeggio of the chord. These all sound nice together, don't they? Now, if this is the C major scale, and these are the 3 notes that are in the chord, then how many notes are in the scale but not in the chord? 4. So these 4 notes could be the other notes that aren't chord tones. And you might hear them sometimes referred to as leading tones or passing tones because they're leading up or passing on their way down to a chord tone. So here's just a little bit of math for y'all. 3 out of 7 is 43%. So that means that if you're just playing random notes in the key of C and your band is playing in the key of C, then you have a 43% chance of getting a chord tone, playing a note that sounds right because it's consonant with those. Now, even if we add these outside of the key notes, 5 of them, the 5 black keys on the piano, then that would still be a 3 out of 12 chance, or a 1 out of 4, or a 25% chance of landing on a chord tone. Now, here's the proof that I wanted to point out. You can never be further than 2 notes away, 2 half steps away from a chord tone. Let's test that out. So here, we're 1, 2, or here, we're 1, 2, or here, we're just half, or here, we're 1, 2. Okay, so what this means is that if you know your chromatic scale, if you practice and use your chromatic scale, you can have the effect of creating glissandos, stylistic glissandos, anytime you correct what sounds like you to be a wrong note. You can use it anytime to find a chord tone. Now, I will make a little point here that sometimes when we play a wrong note, we think we're playing a wrong note, but it doesn't always sound that way to the outside observer. So I'd like to show y'all how I play the chromatic guess it game with the big music games. This is a great feature. What am I trying to say? Not a feature, but a benefit, or a well, it is a benefit and a feature, I guess, of the Flutarians community now, is that you get to use the big music games online. So you can practice this chromatic guess it game even on your own. But normally the chromatic guess it game we play in the group improv game sessions, and player 1 chooses any random note on the flute, plays it as a long tone, and then player 2 then uses the chromatic scale to ascend to it or descend to it and discover the note. Like I said just a moment ago, you can never be further away than 1 or 2 notes, than 2 notes. And when we use a chromatic scale with intention, it has this jazzy effect. So I'll show off 2 games that you have access to out of 16 or more games that you can use to start training your ears and training your fingers and your body to start taking action and finding the right note in your flute, even without thinking too much about which note exactly am I playing. So let's take a look at big music games. So once you open it up here, there's going to be over here on the right side the teacher login or family login. You can use either one of those and log in with my password. I've got it in the Flutarians group listed. You can just use flutarians@gmail.com and long tones at 123, capital L, capital T. That's the password. So when you click Let's Play, it'll take you to all of the games. And here in the melody section, these 2 are, I think, going to be the most useful to you.
A second. Wait a second.
This one, it's like a bicyclist is trying to make it to the end of his race. So I'll try and discover that second note with my flute. Ooh, sounded like a F. C, F, it's a 4th, you see.
Great job.
How about you try the next one?
You're crushing it.
I'll try the next one. Okay, so this game gets harder with more levels. Let's check out the other one, the One Note Wonder. Same idea for practicing here.
One note wonder.
Which of these four is it gonna play?
Right again.
So, let's do one or two more. That one sounds to me like this one. Now you can't quite see this. Here it is. The jewel. Okay, so that's how this game works. Try all the levels. See if you can do them. If you can get through all the levels, you are well on your way to using your ears along with your flute to quickly discover the notes that are most consonant in any song. So I think it's probably a good rule of thumb when we're playing music, improvising, to only play half the time. Ask yourself the question, does the music really need flute now? I think we should only be soloing maybe 10 to 20% of the time. So we'll spend our time playing doing one of these three musical roles: filling in, where we're playing harmonies, we're playing chord tones, but we're not playing forte, we're not playing loud, we're not trying to be heard, we're trying to be a part of the fabric of the music, of the fabric of the band. Or we're taking a solo. This is our moment to shine. We might even be doing a duet, which can be really fun. Make sure in your duet that you give plenty of space for your partner to be heard as well. Similar advice for garnishing. If your primary role is not the soloist right now, make sure you're not stepping on the soloist's toes when you garnish with a little pickles or pepper on top. But flute is the spirit of the wind, right? So we can do things like add these little tremolos or trills or rushes or flurries of notes that add a unique character to music that wouldn't be there if we weren't there with our flutes. So I kind of left out a little bit earlier this idea of playing a one note solo on each of the notes that's in this drone tone. Let me put on my drone tone again quickly so that we can listen to it and play a one note solo. So I think it's a good idea to practice a solo on each of the notes of the scale, chromatic or diatonic, so that you can come to learn the feeling, the particular character of each interval. And I would say that it's important to become comfortable with the blue notes too, the dissonant notes too, because if life and music were warm and fuzzy all the time, it wouldn't be very interesting, would it? So I'll do a little one note improv on the note that I consider to be the most dissonant interval, and then I'll play another one note improv on the note that I consider to be the most consonant interval. Make sure to take some time on your own to explore this sort of improvisation, a one note interval solo. One note solo. You can resolve it to the one if you like. Here's what that might look like. How would you describe the feeling of that interval? Let me try another one. What did you notice about my little solo? Maybe some articulation, maybe some volume changes, dynamics. So, question. Other than notes, the note name that we're playing, what are some musical elements we can improvise with? Volume, dynamics, right? Articulation, all kinds of articulation. Rhythm, maybe tone color, or feel or groove, like is it swung? Remember, all of these are accessible to you in your improvisations. And it would be a mistake to think that improvising is only about which note names do I play. It's an important part, but it's not all of it. Sometimes I find it helpful to kind of paint out a map of where I want to go with my melody. This is actually a worksheet that you can download. I'll send you the link if you want. If you want the link to this presentation, it's in here. It's already built in. So you can ask yourself as you lay out some of these warmer or bluer notes, what kind of direction do you want this melody to have? Here, I'll have a go at playing this one. How would you play it? Want to give it a go? I'll support you with a chord tone. I'll play the E. I think what's most important about learning to improvise is probably to let your creativity out. It's called playing for a reason. Play around with it. Mix it up. Turn it over. Turn it around. Turn it upside down. Turn it faster. Turn it slower. How many variations can you play with? Have fun. So, like I was saying, don't just play notes. Play musical phrases. I bet if you're a classically trained flutist, you've been learning about phrasing for your whole flute life, right? So take those ideas of phrasing, of taking big breaths and making nice, clear pauses and ends to your sentences, and bring it into your improv. Sometimes I even do a topographical map like this as a seed of an idea. How would you play this one? I'll try and make a phrase out of this one. Would you like to join me and make like a rhythmic response? How about you play an E? Here, you want to give this one a try? How about you try and interpret this topographical map? There's no one here to listen but you. Maybe you can even record it and listen back. Remember to put your flute down slowly at the end of a solo. Our body rings with the flute, with our notes. And plus, you don't want to let your audience in on your insecure thoughts about, oh, I don't know if I played this improv right or not. Do you? Maybe if you can temper those thoughts of the inner critic with the quiet mind that's in the state of flow, you can relish that last note. So I love this image at the bottom, the improv meter, because I think it's useful to think about when we're improvising. Are we just playing a strict melody like at a 0% improv, or are we cranking it up to 100% improv where you can't even recognize the melody? So when you make an improv, you can add in some extra notes to fill in, or some arpeggios or octaves or grace notes, trills, turns, chromatic scales, thirds, fourths, fifths. All of those things that you can mix are things that you can mix in there to crank it up on the improv meter. But I think the most beautiful melodies are simple but inevitable. So I encourage you to rest on your good tone and don't shy away from playing slow, long notes with a beautiful tone and intention. So earlier I mentioned that sometimes we might feel like we're making a mistake. Here, let me turn this drone off. I'll turn this drone off so you can hear me even better. Sometimes we might feel like we're making a mistake. We're playing a wrong note, but no one else even knows or cares. And sometimes it turns out to be like a happy accident or a divine accident where we in the moment felt that, oh, I didn't mean to play that note. I wonder if it sounded consonant or dissonant. I wonder if it sounded dissonant. But then when we listen back, it sounds good. It sounds intentional. It sounds interesting. And I put this one here because this is the beginning of the song, includes what I thought in the recording studio was a mistake, this boo. But then when I listened to the recording, I thought, I love the way that sounds. Here, listen with me. Here we go again. Okay, so that's just one example of sometimes we listen back to our recordings and we realize, oh, that wasn't a mistake. That was a creative moment. That was an artistic moment. This is one of the reasons why it's so crucial that you listen to your own recordings and listen not just with a critical ear, but with the ears of your biggest fan as well as the ears of your best teacher. I gave one of my students an assignment only halfway in jest recently. I said, now record yourself doing it 100 times. That may seem excessive at first, but think about the greatest artists, sculptors, and musicians. They've certainly done at least 100 or 1,000 repetitions on the things that they are best at, right? So, this wraps up my instruction on improvising with just a single chord. But next week, I'm going to open up the Zoom room for talking about and playing along with chord changes for the first time. And we will talk about the 1 to 5 chord change, which is the most commonly, frequently found chord change in any music, in any genre. Well, if I'm wrong about that, let me know, but that's what I think. So I say that a chord change is kind of like a home away from home, because when we've been playing just C major, the chords in the C major chord are the notes that feel most like they're at home. But if the band changes to a G major chord, G, G, B, D, then those are the notes, for the time being, that are home, homiest, coziest. And so it's a home away from home. So if we're playing like Achy Breaky Heart, it's back and forth from home, 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 do, do, mi, so, home, boom, 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 home, 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 home. Now we're in G. We feel at home in G. Now we're going back home to C. Okay, so you also get to witness my crazy singing skill progress if you come to the classic rock standards and rock standards classes. We'll also be doing a feature on Amazing Grace because I think that's a tune that's applicable in lots of scenarios and uses a commonly used chord change. And I want to start with a tune you know. So we'll start with Achy Breaky Heart next week, then we'll do Amazing Grace, then we'll move on through some other tunes. We'll finish up adding a chord each week and a tune each week with Hotel California, and then I'll do Improv 101 again. We will practice this improv scaffolding together. We will play duets together, and I call it a scaffolding because a scaffolding you find at incomplete buildings, and this is like an incomplete composition that just lets us know, okay, the flute 2 supportive part is going to play like the bass, like we're playing the bass note implying a chord, and the flute 1 part, the melodic part, is going to play around in the arpeggio, and we'll practice playing any variations of the arpeggio, but taking action to change notes when we hear the band or the supportive role change. So, remember, you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to be a lone wolf. It's harder to do it alone. It's easier to do it with other people. So, I wanted to make sure that you knew about the Flutarians community. There is now a Flutarians community off of Facebook. Now, this is an advantage if you are somebody who gets distracted by Facebook, who takes breaks from Facebook, and you want a place to go where you know your intention is to improve your improvising and not get lost in internet meme land or whatever it is that distracts you. And so here we've got a forum, a community forum, where you can get thumbs up from me and other Flutarians. So you've got some accountability. We've got inspiration like improvisations of the day prompts. And it's also where you can find the replays, find the links to the big music games and other games, and the community calendar. So I'll just give you a brief view of what it looks like. One of the cool things about this is that it makes it easy for me to have some courses for you guys to access. So I've already got a Start Here course up. Here's what it looks like. If you click on events, we've got the calendar here, community calendar. And if you click on learning, we've got some of the courses here. Now, one of the cool things about the courses is that I've linked them to the community forum, so that if you are, for example, are following this one where you record a chaotic or ugly one breath improv, and you click here where it says record this, share it with the group here. Click on that. It takes you right to the discussion in the Flutarians forum. And one of the cool things about recording the voice is, or attaching a recording, is that at least on my phone, I can record directly from the microphone and just upload it here. So I encourage you to share your recordings here. Yeah. And let's see, just trying to wrap it up, see about any other announcements for y'all. Yes, okay, so announcements. If you haven't already heard of Humanitix, it is an event, it is a ticket site like Eventbrite, where I can take RSVPs, and you can either RSVP for free or you can choose to put in your own ticket price. So I am loving this option for the Flutarians because it's like passing the hat as a musician. If you liked this, if you enjoyed this, if you got something out of it, please feel free to return the energy through some sort of donation. And actually, I'm leaving out the coolest part about Humanitix, which is that they're a nonprofit organization. Okay, so when you pay ticket fees on other sites, you don't necessarily know where the profit is going to. But here with Humanitix, those fees, the booking fees that are involved in processing your transaction, it's a non-profit. And so the profits that they get go to organizations like Room to Read, where they transform the lives of children by focusing on literacy and gender equality in education. All right, so you can RSVP for any of my events with Humanitix. Try it out for your own events if you are a musician or a teacher yourself. And every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central, now I'm opening up the Zoom room for group improv games. My intention for these is to create a safe space for taking baby steps when improving improvising and to demonstrate through games some of these ideas that have made it possible for me to have confidence when I improvise, and to create a place for you to be taking action on at least a weekly basis with other flute players so that you can be making incremental progress on your improv journey. Now, next Wednesday night, I'm going to start the rock standards with like I was just saying, Achy Breaky Heart. We'll also go over Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, Let It Be by the Eagles, House of the Rising Sun by the Animals, and Hotel California. And in May, in Tuesdays and Thursdays, I've got some exciting things coming up. So on Tuesdays in May, I'm going to start Transcendental Tuesdays, which is going to be a meditation-based meeting. I will be giving some guidance on how to improvise flute music along with a tune of the week. And I want this one to be kind of like a combination between a meditation experience, like going to a meditation session, and going to a flute class, an improv class. So you can be practicing your playing and also experiencing getting into a sense of flow and experiencing your flute as a tool in your spiritual journey. So also, now on Thursdays, starting in May, I'm going to be alternating every other week with Swifty Flashy Fingers, or Swifty Fingers. Any Swifties out there? Taylor Swift? My idea here is that we all need to be practicing our scales and arpeggios and our thirds, fourths, and fifths sometimes in order to have our fingers nice and smooth when we use those when we're improvising. So I'll be using the tune Shake It Off by Taylor Swift, which has a nice rhythmic drive, and the transpose tool to practice our fast, swift fingers in all keys. So over the course of the year, if we keep on doing this, we'll go over all 12 major keys twice, and then I'll switch that off with once a month embouchure or articulation workshops. I know some of you have asked me about how did I achieve the tone that I've gotten over this time, and articulation skills that I've gotten, so I will be happy to share those with you. And also, I'm going to open up on the third Thursdays of the month an exclusive meeting. This is only for flute teachers and music teachers. So I know it's about half and half in our flute community, adult amateurs and flute or music teachers. So if you are a music teacher, please put this session on your calendar to come and practice some of your teaching skills and to discuss, commiserate, and plan with other flutarians and other flute teachers. How can you incorporate these improv techniques into your own teaching schedule with your own students? So thank you for listening to all of this. Thanks for sticking tuned to the end. If you have any questions or any ideas, please do not hesitate to contact me. I love to hear from you, and it's a shame that you didn't get to hear some of the authentic improvisations from the live replay, but you can make some of your own authentic improvisations, duets and trios with us on Mondays, Wednesdays, Tuesdays, or Thursdays. And if you're in another time zone, just make sure to subscribe to the events calendar so you can get notifications when I do some pop-up sessions on weekends and other times. Happy Easter weekend, as it turns out to be coming up soon, and cheers. Happy practicing. Don't forget to record yourself and listen to your recordings.